Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. To my super chat, thank you. To the members, thank you. And to everybody new watching, be here on November 5th. We're going to talk about, really quickly, before you hear the legal analysis and the analysis on the 270 Trump has to get in terms of the Electoral College, Clarence Thomas, Justice Thomas, gave the legal foundation for Judge Cannon in Florida to completely do away with the classified data trial. The appointment of the special counsel was not constitutional. It was not constitutional because Jack Smith had nothing to do, was not linked to any Senate confirmation, any confirmation by Congress. So therefore, his appointment was unconstitutional. The big issue is that this is going to help reverse and overturn the guilty verdict in New York, which was completely absurd. The hush money guilty conviction is predicated upon a federal statute that doesn't exist. There is literally no single statute that exists. 3 former FEC chairmen stated there was no crime. The FEC itself stated there was no crime. The Department of Justice stated that there was no crime. The federal government stated there was no crime. Yet New York decided unilaterally to claim there was a crime. Really quickly, I want to get to 270 to win. If you look at the electoral map, Trump is doing extremely well. Harris might pick Shapiro from Pennsylvania. There's a reason for that. That's because Democrats do not have a good path to victory. We'll get to that right now really quickly, and then we'll get back to Justice Thomas. I want to show you just some polling on how dominant Trump has been. They say that Harris is bringing enthusiasm. I don't understand how you can generate or manufacture enthusiasm within 2 days after ousting and kicking out the incumbent. But here, this is Trump's polling lead in every swing state.
I'm ABC 15 data analyst Garrett Archer, and I'm taking you inside the numbers on how the shakeup in the presidential race is changing polling in the battleground states. So Emerson College, one of the highest rated pollsters in the 538 database, released their first battleground swing state poll after Biden's withdrawal. So here's the state of the race in these crucial swing states. Starting with Arizona, Trump does lead Harris by 5 points, 49 to 44%. Georgia, it's +2. Michigan +1, Pennsylvania +2, and Wisconsin, the race is tied. So a slight shift towards Harris in 3 of the 5 states, a point shift towards Trump in Arizona, and no swing in Michigan. Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin all registering a 3-point shift in the direction of Kamala Harris.
This, by the way, is before media, before Republicans, before Trump and J.D. Vance actually focus on Harris for the next 3 months, okay? There's really been no negative national coverage of Harris. There wasn't really any negative national coverage of Biden up until everyone realized the lights were on but nobody's home. He was running fries short of a Happy Meal. And so suddenly Democrats shifted and said, oh my God, we have to switch nominees after Biden had won his primary. Okay. This is, I believe, the best that Harris is going to get in terms of polling, okay? Because there is a little bit of energy and enthusiasm, I guess. They switched from the most popular candidate in Biden who couldn't communicate to Harris, who has done literally nothing as vice president, and equated visiting the border to going to Europe. Well, she hasn't been to Europe, so therefore she didn't go to the southern part of our country. The same thing. It's just, the same thing. So you can foresee or foreshadow what's going to take place in 3 months. People are going to find out exactly what she did and didn't do in 4 years as vice president. They're also going to say, well, if you didn't like Biden, why would you like his vice president? That makes no sense. So this is the best, I think, in terms of polling that these swing states are going to get. Then when you get a stock market crash, which I believe, I've been predicting there's going to be a stock market crash for a while. I think that we could get, unfortunately, I'm not happy about this, a crypto and stock market crash. which would make it pretty much impossible for Democrats to win. But let's continue.
So focusing on Arizona, other polling since Biden's withdrawal does show much of the same thing. In 3 of Biden's last polls, he was losing to Trump by about 4 to 6 points in Arizona. In polling just this week, Trump leads Harris by 3 to 6 points, so not much of a difference. One of the possible reasons why Arizona remains largely unchanged is our voters are unique among those battleground states on what they see as a top issue. Nearly a third of Arizona said that immigration is the top issue. And as you can see here, immigration doesn't even go above 11% anywhere else. The economy dominates as a top issue in all of the other 4 swing states. Drilling down to some key demos and how they've changed since Biden was polled. Mostly small movements here since Biden was polled. Mostly drilling down to some top issue in all of the other.
So if you look, the economy is always the top issue. Immigration, Arizona is obviously it's going to be because they feel the effects of Biden and Harris's policies. 30%. It's 30% of respondents say that's the most important thing to them. Okay, now. Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, 42%, 41%, 42%, 50% of people there find the economy as the most important, if I'm reading this correctly, as the most important issue, okay? The economy is not going to get better, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it's not going to get better, especially we might very well have a stock market crash before then. A crypto crash or stock market crash or both. We're at all-time highs in the indices, and there's really no reason for that. Okay, especially with inflation and interest rates. And then you had Jerome Powell stating we're on a path that's unsustainable in terms of the deficit and debt. Well, you shouldn't have shut down economic activity. Democratic governors shouldn't have shut down economic activity, and of course they blame it on Trump. And then they shouldn't have gone after oil and gas companies in the U.S. and then begged other countries for oil and gas that flooded strategic petroleum reserves. But this is huge, ladies and gentlemen. We all know what happens that day, okay, that week or that month. Democrats want an entire month, oh, look, we found more. Let's continue.
Other 4 swing states. Drilling down to some key demos and how they've changed since Biden was polled. Mostly small movements here. Women, voters under 40, and Hispanic voters all shifting slightly in Trump's direction. For Harris, we see small swings in white voters, those with no college degree, and suburbanites. But one big swing for her came from black voters who supported her by 63 points, and that is a 15-point shift in her favor. Now, remember, while some of these are larger subgroups in these polls, but they still do come with higher margins of error than the poll in general. So while the shifts are interesting, not all of them may end up panning out for either of these candidates. With a look inside the numbers, I'm Garrett Archer, ABC 15.
All right, really quickly, let's just do this. I mean, this is, not gospel here, but let's just do this. Nevada is going to go Trump. Arizona will go Trump. New Mexico will go Democrat. Colorado will go Democrat. Oregon, of course, will go Democrat. Texas, I love when they always say Texas is a swing state, which is complete nonsense in the presidential contest. Florida, that was huge. Now, North Carolina, I believe Georgia will go red, and Trump. Ohio, Trump has Ohio. And Iowa, Trump will get Iowa. Okay. You then need 268. You need one more state. And here's where it gets interesting. Okay. Here's where it gets interesting. Let's see here. Illinois, blue. Oh, no, blue. Okay. Virginia will go Democrat. Oh, no. Virginia will go blue. Trump needs to get one of these. Let's see if Democrats get all of. So, okay. So it's 267, 249. So let's see. They say Maine here is leaning blue. Not exactly sure. So 267, he needs 270 to win. They have zero margin of error here. You tell me in the comment in the chat. Am I doing something wrong here? Oh, now you have two. Oh wow, let's see, 267. Oh, that's 270. So if Trump gets let's say Trump gets Michigan, 283. So he just has to get one of these states. So Democrats need, it's 270 to 268. They have to get Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. If Trump just gets one of these, just one, they have to run the table, okay? They have to run the table and get every single one of those states. Let's say Trump gets Michigan. 282, 234. He's won. And he's up in Michigan. Okay, he's up in all these teams. He's up in Wisconsin. He's tied in Wisconsin, they say, but he's up in every poll in Wisconsin. He's tied in actually in Minnesota. He's up in Pennsylvania, and Virginia is up for grabs. So it could be very close, but see, it's Democrats that have to really, really do extremely well in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. They cannot lose. The only way they win is they have to win Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, and they're down in most of those states. Actually, they're down in every state but Virginia, and then Minnesota, they're tied with Trump. Okay. So, I think he'll get Michigan. He very well could get Wisconsin. He gets Wisconsin and Michigan. It's 292, 224. Okay. If they don't get Pennsylvania, forget about it. Anyway, you tell me if I'm not looking at this correctly. But let's continue.
The economy taking center stage in this year's election. Kamala Harris holding the record for most tie-breaking Senate votes, including President Biden's COVID stimulus package in 2021, which critics say grew today's inflation crisis. So what does this mean for her economic agenda? Sunday Morning Futures anchor Maria Bartiromo joins us now. Maria, good morning. It's great to see you. So now that Kamala Harris is the presumptive nominee, everybody is wondering how she would handle the economy because it's the number one issue on the minds of voters. What do you think?
Well, Carly, good morning to you. I think you have to assume so. You have to assume that she is going to continue what she's been doing in her career before getting to this place. Look, she was and is the most progressive senator. She was in the Senate. We all know that. You're talking about her being the tie-breaking vote in the Biden administration 33 times. Most importantly, as you mentioned, she kicked off what became massive inflation, costing everybody so much money on everything at the grocery store. Now, some of the spending that Biden has done in his term.
By the way, I'm looking on my phone, and Wisconsin, Trump is up 3.3 points in Real Clear Politics. So that's pretty good for Trump. They have to be perfect. Okay. Again, they have to be perfect for Trump to lose.
which she was by his side, was, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act, where she was the deciding vote, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the forgiveness of student debt, the CHIPS Act, the green energy tax credits. You've got all of these policies from the Biden-Harris administration. So it's going to be hard for her to walk away from these policies. But that's exactly what we're seeing happen right now. There's this complete rewrite of history underway. She wasn't the border czar, really? She doesn't want to ban fracking? Well, she was so adamant about banning fracking. How can you have such conviction on something and then turn around when you're running for president 100 days away from the election and tell the Hill, no, I'm not going to ban fracking? The border is obviously a massive black eye. So we'll see what happens there and how she's going to get out of all of these things that she basically put in place as the most progressive senator. You know, it's interesting. They keep the Democrats like to talk about what the Republicans are doing when, in fact, they're actually doing it. And now I understand they're using the same language as well. The Wall Street Journal last week wrote, "Can Trump beat Harris with common sense?" Which, of course, common sense, not to kill off America's energy independence. And yet they're using that term as well on the Democrat side to donors. We just want common sense. So we'll see how this next 100 days plays out.
Yeah.
We're talking about it this morning.
Well, Maria, you know, she supports single-payer health care, which means that she wants to outlaw all private insurance. She also supports some form of a universal basic income. She also co-sponsored legislation with Bernie Sanders that would pay tuition for four-year public colleges for students from families making up to $125,000.
So, of course, she's lying to the left on that. Democrats always lie regarding single payer and banning fracking and Green New Deal. They just flood strategic petroleum reserves into the country. They beg other countries for oil. And they just do that because if you're on the left, you will lose all your friends, all maybe even family members. You'll be shunned, ostracized, disowned if you vote for Trump. So all you need is a promise, and then you'll believe it, or you'll say, oh my God, she really wants our policy ideas, which of course is nonsense. There's a zero chance on earth that Harris or any leading Democrat will campaign on single payer health care in 24. That's a racket from the Democratic Party.
Her answer to everything when it comes to the economy is more government spending our taxpayer dollars.
And throughout this period under Biden, government has been getting bigger. That's where the jobs are coming from, largely the government sector, in particular healthcare. A lot of Wall Street analysts last week were coming out with notes telling clients this is what will be impacted should Kamala Harris get to the White House. And they are very much centered on healthcare because of that that decision for her, Medicare for All. So Medicare for All is also going to come back and haunt her, and the impact on this economy as well. And as you say, all of that spending led to 40-year high inflation, and we very well could see a redo of that. I spoke with one analyst the other day who said when you see inflation get excessive, like we have seen it above 7%, it actually got all the way up to 9.1% on Biden's watch, you typically have a second wave of inflation unless you have serious policies to stop it. So I would expect a second wave of massive inflation should Kamala Harris reach the White House. And that's what we're talking about this morning. We will get a reaction to this complete rewrite in history, scrubbing her record clean from the governor of Florida. Ron DeSantis is joining me coming up. And then we'll talk with Ken Paxton, the AG of Texas, about the border and why they're running from the border. By the way, why run from the border and say you're not the border czar? I mean, obviously, just doing that in and of itself tells us that they understand how important a wide open border is to the American people and that America is upset about this wide open border. But now they're trying to run from it. So they've exposed themselves there. Obama has been pulling a lot of the strings, and Peter Schweitzer has a thing or two to say about that. You know, on the way out of the White House, President Obama had an interview, and he said, I would love it if I could just be in my sweats in the basement and tell whoever's in charge what to do. And I'm wondering if he's going to continue holding the strings and pulling the strings. We'll also talk with Byron Donalds about that and Senator Joni Ernst with the latest out of Israel this morning.
It's a big show ahead, and you're covering every angle of this newly developed election political landscape. Maria, thank you so much. Watch Sunday Morning Futures coming up at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Maria, have a great day.
So, again, Democrats need the economy to do extremely well. The market could tank before then. I think the market will tank. I've been predicting a stock market crash. Unfortunately, let's continue with this.
All right, this is the market in the last 48 hours, of course. Taking a look at the Dow, big comeback today after a big beating yesterday. The same for the NASDAQ. So what do you buy, the free fall yesterday or so far the comeback today? Peter Eliades, the Stock Market Cycle editor and publisher, but certainly not buying a bull market, at least for the longer term. Peter, what do you think?
Oh, Neil, I'm so happy I could talk with you to attempt to revitalize what must have been a painfully quiet and boring past few weeks of news for you.
You're right, my friend. But you've been looking this apart from all these, fundamental developments, because you read the technicals. And what do the technicals tell you?
Well, right now, the technicals are getting more and more bearish. One of the things that, when you know that I'm very much maybe 99 and 44, 100% ivory technician and not fundamentalist. But the one fundamental thing I like to look at, Neil, at extremes is valuation. Valuation is completely useless, usually. It can give you an idea when you get to real extremes on the low side or on the high side. My favorite valuation metric is by John Hussman of Hussman Econometrics. And on July 22nd, Neil, Hussman said that on Tuesday, July 16th, his valuation metrics reached the greatest extreme overvalued in history of 100 years, going back to before 1929.
So again, I've been saying for a long time, because of interest rates and inflation, corporate profits will eventually subside, and the valuations currently will lead to a market crash, because all of these huge hedge funds, huge players on Wall Street will say, "Oh my goodness, it's way too overvalued," and that's how crashes begin. Also, the catalyst could be a crypto. See, once the crypto, there are a great many Ponzi schemes in crypto, and once the market collapses, then you have a crypto collapse, or vice versa. But when the market goes down too quickly, let's say in a crash where there's 4,000 points in the Dow down, okay, even if it's 2,000 points in the Dow, which wouldn't be this cataclysmic crash, it would be pretty substantial. But let's say it's 4,000 points, like 10%, okay? If I'm correct on that. So the issue is that then crypto would then tank, which would then make matters worse for the market, infinitely worse.
So that was impressive. And he mentioned July 16th, and of course, we've started to come down from there. Now, does that guarantee a top? Of course not. But the point is, Neil, where is the next 15, 20, 30, 40, 50% going to be? My evaluation of the upside potential from current levels is we have a 0 to 5% chance of going up 10 to 20% from here. And we have a 50 to 70% chance of going down more than 50%.
So when you look at that, Peter,
you go down more than 50%. That's a cataclysmic stock market crash, and this is why the crypto market is like, what, 2 trillion? Okay? They ain't going to be able to blame Trump. Do you understand? They're not going to be able to blame Trump. And we'll get to Clarence Justice Thomas in a moment. I did speak about that early on in the live stream. We'll speak more about it, but this is huge, ladies and gentlemen, for November. There's zero chance Democrats win. They'll lose Congress as well by a landslide if and when there's a market crash, and I do believe there will be a market crash.
You talk about overvaluation. In other words, the price of stocks simply don't match or in sync with the earnings that really support them, and that can't be sustained for very. But the issue is, a lot of folks I talked to are bullish said, well, the earnings will catch up with the price, like in Nvidia's case, where it would have like this, sky high multiple. Earnings would come out to bring it back down more to earth, so that the earnings catch up. That's the hope. You don't buy that, right?
Neil, do me a favor sometime. Bring someone on that's a mathematician. Have them figure out the capitalization of Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple, perhaps. If you sold Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple, you could buy the complete economies of Great Britain, Germany, and Italy. I mean, everything in that country that's listed on their stock exchange, you could buy their complete economies with 3 stocks. I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. That overvaluation, especially in terms of technology, is just incredible. Look, NVIDIA is a fabulous company. AI is going to provide a lot of help for a lot of companies. But when you think you can sell one stock and buy the complete economy of a large European country, you're smoking a lot of stuff, Neil.
But you had to dump my Italy into those other countries, didn't you? But let me
see, what people aren't realizing is the crypto element, okay? This is what makes the market crash worse now than ever, okay? And we're primed for that probably before November, unfortunately, okay? October is a bad month, 87, 29. But anyway, the point is, they can have 50 Steele dossiers. They can accuse Trump of going to the bathroom in 75 different hotels with 56 Kremlin operatives, and they can convict him 10 more times of payments to different actresses. It doesn't really matter, because what's the problem is 29, 87, 08. There wasn't a crypto element. The crypto element is nasty. And when you have the market go down, and then you have derivatives, then you have cryptocurrencies all going down at the same time, then you have hedge funds, then you have hedge funds going bankrupt. Then you find out the Ponzi schemes in the Sam Bankman-Frieds or the Bernie Madoffs, and then then you find out all of these problems. Big issue, ladies and gentlemen.
Let me ask you a little bit. You could throw Switzerland in there and even it up, but let me get your take then on what you see happening after we have this small percentage possibility of up to another 20% run up, and then what happens? Spell it out.
Well, if we go that far, and I'm very, very dubious we do that, the only thing that saves this time zone that we're in, perhaps, is the election. So a lot of people may say, well, let's wait to see what happens going into the election. Right. That might hold the market up. I can't be confident about that. But everything that I look at, Neil, is telling me that this market is an accident, and a really big accident waiting to happen.
So what do you buy, Peter? In this environment, how do you safely play it?
If you want to be real conservative, of course, you buy T-pills. They're finally giving you some kind of return. Think of the time between two.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will be back tomorrow. This is huge. Democrats have to do extremely well with Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia. There's zero room for error. If they don't get every one of those states, they lose. And if they don't get all of those states at once, I mean, Trump is up in those states, by the way. you have a market crash, you're looking at Virginia going Trump. So I do think that there's going to be a market crash before November. I hope I'm wrong. This is not, nothing is normal here. What Democrats did with Biden and Harris, the valuations in the stock market, the cryptocurrency kind of Wild West, arena, nothing's normal. Nothing is normal here. And we're on shaky ground in terms of foreign policy, economic policy, domestic policy. It's all because of Democrats. You could say it's also Republicans as well. Yeah, okay, never Trump Republicans. You want to talk about the old Republican Party? Fine. This has been taking place. The origins of all of this is when we shut down economic activity. That was media, bureaucrats, Democrats, and never Trump Republicans leading the way, mainly Democrats leading the way, along with media and specific bureaucrats who shall remain nameless. He who shall not be named, who talks like this. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. Can I tell you something? I'm not giving any investment advice at all. This is not investment advice. Okay? I don't have any money in the market. But if I had my life savings in the market right now, I would ensure that my life savings is not in the stock market at this moment. Okay? But anyway, that's not investment advice. I'm just saying. Hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen, because I think the whole thing's going to financial crash. Hit